going on, guys? Twig Timber Outdoors, and today I want to show you the proper way to handle certain fish to make sure that they actually survive the journey from being caught, landed, and released. Now, I know what you're saying. You throw fish back all the time, you fizz fish, you do all these really good practices, but remember that just because you see a fish swim off does not mean that fish survives. It's actually very common to see fish quickly swim off but not survive because they were either mishandled, fought too long, water temperatures were wrong, or a vast plethora of different other things that affect fish. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to use this old stuffed fish here, which ends up, I think, being a cat toy. I don't have a cat, but I bought it because it was inexpensive, to show you guys what it is I mean by proper fish care. So I think the first and most important thing to remember is, if at all possible, fight a fish on the heaviest tippet or line you can to make sure that you get them back. Now, if you play fish in warm water, if you're fighting for trout, or other salmonids, if it's above 65 degrees, do not fish. If it's above 60 degrees, 62 degrees, you're going to put that fish in a lot of danger, okay? Even if you play them quickly, release them quickly, that fish is struggling to get oxygen in because of the high water temperatures. Warm water fish like bass, not so much. You can fish those guys all day, all night in 90+ degree weather. But remember that the warmer the water, the less oxygen is in that water, so you want to play them quickly. Second thing, if at all possible, you want to handle any fish, regardless of what species, the least amount possible. So what I mean by that is when you handle them, if you need to get a photo, if you want to get a photo, if it's your job to get a photo, do so very quickly and meticulously, methodically. Okay? So for example, if I want to take a picture of this trout or salmon, I think it's an Atlantic salmon. Anyway, this fish, I want to handle it the least amount as possible. So that means if you're going to use a net, use a big net with a rubber mesh and something that you can get down and get the fish out, take a photo really quickly. Also, if at all possible, try and keep them wet. I know everyone's always used to seeing bass pictures like this, but remember that if you can, okay, to again maximize the efficiency of your catch and release, keep them in the water as best you can. Not always going to happen, but remember, best practices to know. So if you're going to catch any fish, a small to medium-sized fish, it's really okay to hold by the middle of the fish, okay? Usually, this is called the caudal peduncle of any fish. It's where the fish's body becomes the tail. To tail the fish like this and to support it in the middle is usually pretty good for most fish. Grabbing trout by the mouth, not a good idea. Grabbing any fish by the gills, usually not a good idea. Even muskie, even walleye, it can be done safely, but you see problems with anglers hurting fish that way very often. So, if at all possible, tailing the fish and supporting it underneath is usually safest. Big fish, you need to make sure you widen your hand and you're not putting a pressure point underneath the bottom of the big fish, because that fish is going to hinge on internal organs and it's not going to be good for that fish. If you're going to lip a bass or any other fish, don't lip it like this. Try and get the fish supported vertically if possible. If you're going to lift the fish like horizontally, support the middle while you do so. Because again, if you're hinging the fish like that, the fish's jaw is not supposed to do that. So if it's going to be for a half a second to get it to that point, just be very wary of what you're doing to the fish. They have to eat, okay? So if you do something permanently damaging the jaw of that fish, it's not going to be able to eat as efficiently, and therefore it could die. Again, quickly as possible. So if I hook a fish, whether it be fly, whether it be conventional, whether it be spin, casting, doesn't matter. I get them to the side of the boat or to the bank. I don't beach the fish, okay? I keep it in the water. If it's a bass, you can lip that bass, support it in the water. You can unhook it in the water, or if you want to, you can bring it up in a rubber net, unhook it, and let it go really quickly. Another thing I see anglers doing that usually doesn't help the fish is pulling the fish back and forth in the water. Gills work one way, typically, and so holding the fish in the water, pushing it forward, or putting it in head upstream is best, okay? And then bringing it up slightly out of the water, bringing it back like that. It's better just to let the fish sit in the water, collect its own self, and then swim off willingly. Now, if you do a really quick catch and release, you're going to notice that fish is ready to roll and probably going to survive. But the more you handle the fish, the more you put the fish in the live well. Live wells are great, but they still aren't as good as being in the cool water that is, you know, down deep in the lake or in the stream or whatever. I'm not telling you not to take photos. I'm not telling you how to handle your fish. Just be mindful, be conscious that a big fish, you want to hold as wide as possible and as many places as possible. If it's not a bass, try not to, or a bluegill or something that is a predatory fish like that, don't lip that fish or don't gill that fish, because you're going to end up killing that fish. If it is a bass, try to do your best to support the weight evenly of that fish, because jacking their jaw up or putting a hinge in their body can either injure their internal organs or their jaw, making it very difficult to eat. Okay? So just be mindful. I know that I'm going to get a lot of flack for this, but it's just a matter of trying to ensure that our fisheries stay quality fisheries, and that if we can help it, okay, not killing fish after a successful day out will ensure you can go back and find a plethora of fish, plentiful fish, later on for you or generations to come. So, thanks again. Give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, check out the other videos in the playlist. Until next time, guys, catch you again on the flip side. Tight lines, and we're out.